Good morning, everyone, and thank you to all of you who've made it here on time for our Cloud Mobility and Resiliency webinar. I'm Duncan Brown, Head of Infrastructure Services at Systems Express Group. Before we start, I'd like to say a big thank you to our speakers today. We have Yair Miller, who is a Solution Architect from Systems Express. And we also have Daniel, who'll be joining us from Veritas, who'll be performing a demo for us a little bit later on. So, who are Systems Express? Well, we've been building solutions and selling services since the 1980s. This has allowed us to develop skills that can help us optimize any workload on any platform, anywhere. As a result, we've adopted a range of large technologies and services to complement our clients' posture. And by collecting relevant data and by clever analysis, we can help our customers select the right solution delivery model, the right services approach to achieve client benefits. Just to give you a little bit more information about the services we offer, we break them down into 5 key sections. So consultation, deployment, cloud, support, and training services. If you're not already a customer of Systems Express, do speak to Ron or one of the other account managers, and we'll be more than happy to set up a call and talk you through our capabilities in a little bit more detail. Just before I go, I wanted to share some of the customers who are currently receiving support and services, either directly from us or through one of our chosen partners. So whether it's a case that you've got a new project where you're looking to deploy some servers and some storage, you are looking to make an entrance into big data and analytics, or you want to try out cloud migration, or look at it from a resiliency perspective, do speak to us. I'm fairly sure that we can add some value there. So thank you very much. If you do have any questions, feel free to fire them across now. Very shortly, my colleague Yair will be taking over control, and we'll talk you through a recent case study he has performed.
Hello, my name is Yair Miller, and I'm a solution architect here in System Express. Before that, I've been working for 6 years in EMC as a solution architect. Today, I'm going to show you one of my past projects that was part of the design team. This project was for a financial institution who was looking to automate tasks, improve performance, and of course, reduce their cost. After a careful checking that our proposed solution will fit the regulation and the customer need, we decided to offer them a hybrid cloud solution. This use case is about a customer that is one of the largest banks in Israel with a global branch, and it's under the US, UK, and EU regulation. As you all know, when it comes to financial institution and IT project, the regulation is a big factor on it, especially when your solution includes using the cloud. Just imagine their expression when we propose our cloud solution, and even more when the regulation approves it. Our proposed solution was to have our VMware cloud environment as an on-premise production site that is backed up by Amazon Cloud for DR. The customer had a lot of consideration for this project. The main one were making sure to stay on budget, implementing the solution according to all relevant regulation, that we have all requirement hardware and configuration for this project to fit the expected performance, that the move to the cloud will not cause any latency issue or service unavailability. This is the main reason we selected a large and well-known cloud provider. And of course, in order to enjoy all of the new technology and benefit, we worked with the customer to map the most important and most frequent tasks to automate them in the new solution. There is a myth I want to change in people's mind. People tend to believe that moving to the cloud, you have to move your entire estate. If you wish to enjoy some of the great feature of the cloud, you can do it without moving your entire data center if you don't want or don't need to. You can just move part of it. Although most of the companies are similar, especially if they are from the same sector, each company might have different requirement and different solution at the end of the day. This project started with a proof of concept. once the customer approved it, we created the scope of work that was agreed upon, and then we started the implementation. Here you can see a diagram of the proposed solution in higher resolution. The production was a new site in a greenfield solution. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with this phrase. Greenfield means installing the solution in a new and clean environment. The production was replicated to an Amazon cloud, which stood as the DR site. We used this solution for some database and back proprietary application. Obviously, the solution diagram was much bigger, with much more details, but this should give you a hint about this 6-month project we have done. If any of you are considering a similar project, I'm going to give you some general tip from my experience. Spending a lot of time understanding the requirement and the current infrastructure is crucial. Once you have done that, you should do a risk assessment. Here you can see an example of how we did it in our discussed case. This analysis helps us to deliver a safer and successful result. It allows us to plan action in line with the business requirements and needs. I'm sure all of you have experience with a long and complex project that has many issues are coming along the way. Finishing the project on time with minimal interruption to the organization is a high priority for us as people who deliver and manage it. We always sit down with the decision making to agree on a formula of how we should resolve any unexpected issue when they come. Again, here you can see it how we did it in our use case. Before I'm going to move on to Daniel, who will show you the demo of the Veritas Resiliency platform, I want to summarize my recommendation that we just discussed. The solution must start with a full and careful analysis of the company need and requirement, which give us the initial SOW and design. Realistic timeline is crucial in my experience. It's better to be conservative than optimistic. And lastly, there is a saying, hard in training, easy on the battlefield. So the more time you spend on designing, the preparation, the designing, and the configuration before the automation, it will make your life much easier in the long run. Daniel is about to show you an example of the end result of a fully configured environment. With the Resiliency platform, you can move your data center into the DR with one click once it's fully configured. Any question? I think Daniel will show the demo now.
Daniel, just whilst you're getting set up, I've got a quick question for Yair. What did their faces actually look like?
Really surprised. They were quite shocked to see the regulation approved cloud solution. It was quite funny in the meeting once we showed them the regulation improvement.
I think if you told me 10 years ago that was going to be possible, I probably would have laughed as well.
Thank you very much, Yair, and thank you, Duncan. So my name is Daniel Sorenby. I work in Veritas, and I'm here to go through and present and demo Veritas Resiliency platform. So before jumping into the platform itself, I want to build on a little bit of what Yair talked about. The importance of creating that good, big design and understanding all the use case of what is going to happen and where it's going to happen. I mean, the reason why you do this is, of course, because of business continuity management. So understand where and what and how it can fail. So this is a little bit about, you can, if you see the slide of what I talked here about, is that the majority of reasons of why something fails is, of course, the end user. So up to 80% of downtime is caused by processes and people. So therefore, looking into them and planning them rigorously will help you a lot. As well, you have hardware failure. Hardware will always fail. Moving into cloud will help you, of course. They will manage the hardware and virtualize the majority of your environment on that. So with that, you also need to calculate, when you're planning and building this, you need to calculate the cost. What would this failure actually cost me? So here are some cost situations for the various businesses in various sizes. If you're a very small business, of course, little cost. Whether then you are a very big business, online business, every time something goes offline, it's going to have a huge amount of cost to you. This is based on the ESG research report, to just understand what is the cost ending up when you do this. And I'm sure many of you have already done and looked into this yourselves. Additional to that is that in previous times, I've many times talked about the multi-cloud is something of a future. But if we look here already in the Truth in the Cloud report coming 2017, the multi-cloud situation is already here. Customers are already using multiple infrastructure as a service clouds across the world. Whether they buy small pieces or big pieces, this is quite the normal stand already today. And when you go into the cloud, the thing is that many times it's not up to the cloud provider to ensure your high availability. It's up to you to look into the continuity management of your applications and your virtual machines. And therefore, planning this out and taking something as System Express to help you out will help you a lot. One part of the progress of looking into understanding which applications are important to you, because not all applications are important. The file share is maybe not as important as your business system or CRM systems or logistical systems if you work with logistics. Everything comes down, of course, what is important and how do they link into each other. Because when you know the links of which systems are dependent on each other, you can then create that right resiliency system and create that business continuity for it. However, that's a little bit of the start of it. When we look into resiliency platform, we will see that it covers moving into your on-prem to on-prem, moving from on-prem to Amazon, moving from on-prem to Azure, as well as going into vCloud Director. So if you have a managed service provider that you're using, you can basically manage that failover over to them with VRP. You also have the possibility of integrating with multiple different applications. You have the part of integrating it with the various storage arrays. So if you have storage array replication, you can use VRP to create the management of failing over the various parts. In addition to that, you also have part of our Veritas InfoScale, and that is old storage foundation and cluster server systems that can also be managed by VRP, as well as our net backup estate. So all of those pieces can be used for replication situation, or you can use the internal system. So VRP itself is built of a resiliency manager, an infrastructure management server, and a replication appliance. Depending on how you set this up, whether you set them up on premise, like this case, then you have the resiliency manager on both site A and B. And you then can use the internal replications, whether it's Hyper-V replica, if you're using VRP data mover, or whether you use the storage array snapshots. If you have physical systems that you want to use here, VRP can work with InfoScale in this case, as well as they're going to be brought in more of that in VRP itself. If you go into cloud, in this case, you're basically only deploying the resiliency manager up in cloud, and you're deploying the replication appliances. However, you need to use the VRP data mover in this case. So unless you're going to IBM soft layer, then because if you go into IBM soft layer, then you should use XIV and storage technologies, the storage technology, IBM storage technology replication into their cloud. However, if you want to go into Amazon or Azure, then you use the VRP data mover. So I've created some use cases of when you're looking over and using the VRP. So one of the use cases is, of course, maintenance. You need to move a VM or a group of virtual machines, and you need to move them over to your separate site. This is a planned downtime, or basically even a full migration in this case. In this case, I will use an on-premise to on-premise to demonstrate this. I will later on showcase how to do a test without impacting production in the next one. So when you're building this type of maintenance part, you need to look into all the people you need to talk to. So of course, you need to talk to the service holder, the VM admin, the storage team, and the server team, as well as the network teams, to ensure that all of these changes that are going to happen in your estate, they will happen the correct way. And as you've seen or heard, or if you've ever done this, it has a huge amount of time. You have to talk with all these people to get all the information there. And it can have quite a lot of errors. If one person miscommunicates with one, all of a sudden you might have the wrong network address, or you might put in some wrong numbers in which way it should replicate the storage. So everything can and has important parts of, and therefore automating this. And if you use Resiliency platform, you now only, as a service owner, you can give the service owner its own access to Veritas Resiliency platform, and with one click, he can get the migration going. So a little bit of how it looks. So this is basically what you do. You have to create your resiliency group inside of Resiliency platform. After creating that, what it does is you configure the VM, you mount it, the disk groups and the replication, as well as setting up the replication up to the second site. Once you then say migrate, tell it to migrate, it will create follow the migrate workflow. It will start the resiliency group on site, and it will start the resiliency group on the site. And now it will also change the replication to go to the opposite way. So if we go into my demo environment, we should just see where it is. Okay. So here I have two vCenters. They are situated apart from each other. So here is also VRP running as it is. So first, before I actually go and demonstrate exactly that use case, I will showcase a little bit of an automation plan. So because many customers might have very different ways of how they work with their applications. They might have a database. They might need to do specific ways of building up the database before. So when you do that, you can then create your own template. So based on your way of building it. So you have remove certain operations. You can even have manual tasks having done there, but in that case, then it's not as automated. You might have scripts specifically designed for you, and you can create your own flow or workflow of how these are going to be brought in. So if you have a script and everything that needs to be done the right way, then you build your own workflow, how they should be brought down before they are then brought up again. So you have this full self-setup and configuration for yourself. I won't do it, but I will just wanted to show you that you have a lot of power to do that. Addition to that, you also have the possibility of putting out reports. So once you're doing rehearsal and training, you can then pull out reports for showing how is my resiliency groups and my systems working, and how are my what are the risks I'm exposed to, etc. So you have all the reports you can run and take them out, and you can basically send them to yourself as an admin. So you don't have to go through the interfaces yourself, but you get a full view of what is the risks that you're exposed to. So going into the assets. So in here, I have some resiliency groups up and running. And if we look here, the machines here are in my resiliency groups. And I have a virtual business service. So a virtual business service is in Veritas, something where you have created one application that has maybe web, and then you have a database in the background. So they're multi-layered applications that are depending on each other, and they're running on different virtual machines or machines. And therefore, when you fail them over, you will fail over the whole group instead of just one individual instance. So here we have this one, and it's online. We'll actually go in and showcase this virtual machine. So here we have an application machine. I will tell this one to migrate. So in this case, I will migrate it over to London. It will now tell me do not do any vMotion because this is a VMware environment while this is happening. And then as it's pre-prepping, it will start running So here you will see the very migration process that you can design yourself depending on your environment. We have some pre-template that you can use, but if you have your own specific designs for doing this, you can design them for yourself. So right now I'm migrating from this vCenter into this vCenter. So I will let that run in the background. Yeah?
Daniel, you're speaking a lot about VMware. Of course, this platform also supports Hyper-V as well.
Absolutely. Yes, correct. So my demo environment here is set up with VMware, and that's why I'm speaking a lot about it. But as you said, it's fully supported on Hyper-V as well. It's supported into the various clouds as well. Okay? But I will demonstrate the next part of the demonstration. I will demonstrate it into Amazon. So while this is running in the background, I will continue with my next use case. Okay? And this is a little bit about healthy visibility. So how do I ensure and test this? Okay, so I have a multi-tiered application, and how do I ensure this? So the very same thing, we will go through the very same thing. We now need to ensure and understand the health. Now you have to talk with the service owner. You have to talk with the storage admin. Can he look into the replication? What is correct? Is it something misconfigured? The virtual team, the server team itself. And again, we have this quite a lot of different people we have to talk to consolidate and get that risk report. So there's risk of missing certain parts of detecting this, and because it's a fragmented visibility. So again, with the Veritas replication platform, you have a very easy view of doing this. And as I said, you have the possibility of doing a rehearsal. Instead of doing a full deployment of a failover, you can do a rehearsal. And with a rehearsal, what it will do is that you now configure your resiliency group, you configure your disaster recovery and the replication with all the parts. And what you do here instead is that when you say rehearse, it will basically create the rehearse workflow, and it will use a different subnet when it spawns these machines up into the other site. So in this case, I will go in and I will showcase that. We should just see where it is. Okay, so here I have one in Amazon, and I will, so this, oh, sorry. We shall see here. So this is my environment in Amazon. I have quite a lot of different parts in Amazon up and running right now. But we shall go in and and look at the resiliency platform. So here I have one resiliency group created here. It's an Oracle database. And what I will do to this is I will say rehearse. So instead, I will now tell it, instead of taking down the machine on my production side, I will just say move over and start over in the opposite side. And as I said, it will then come, you can pre-config which subnet it should go on to instead, and you pre-config that so it won't have any clashes to the other side. So right now it's starting up and going to run up into Amazon. So you just see this. And I will let that run for a little while, just as I did with the other, and we will then see that the machine is popping up here. I've done it as a test, so this was basically the machine that I have, but I terminated it, so that's removed from my cost. As well, when you do rehearsal afterwards, you need to clean up the rehearsal operation because it will otherwise still stay in the DR site up and running. In addition to that, when you are faced with a full business catastrophe, one DR site, one main site is going down, for instance, then you would have something like this. So, tornado, something happens that makes all critical applications, etc., go down. I mean, this is a tornado, so this is an American example, but for us in Europe, flooding is more the likelihood of happening if you are close to water or a river, for instance. So the very same thing goes here. The risk, again, you now have to take contact very late at night if this is happening and you didn't know it was going to happen. You now have to take contact late at night with the database admins, the VM admins. You don't know whether they are reachable, depending on they might be sleeping or not, or might wake up, they might be on call. There's many things and many steps to go through to ensure that you can now fail over the situation. And this here, if anyone has ever done this, they will know that 3 hours is not what it takes. It takes far longer. I mean, we have British Airways who had this, I think they were down for a few days. So this is when something very difficult happens, you need to, of course, have the right system. So with Resiliency platform, this would basically be able to take about 15 minutes with a click of saying move over. Okay, and how it works in so it's very easy. You can give one access. One person needs to be on call if you have automated and put in all those steps that the manual team would have done. So the manual script that the DBA would say, run the scripts before you start up the application, etc. So a little bit of the work. Yep.
And of course, you can select the order which the operating system will come up. So if you need the database to come up before the web application, you can set it up in the Resiliency platform.
Yeah, exactly. You configure that yourself, and I can showcase that as actually separately. So a little bit of the VMware or the VM takeover. The situation here, the very same thing you create. Now you have had a failure, and instead you now just say take over. So this will now start up the resiliency group on the site. So this is automatic, but it doesn't fail over automatically. So you have to push. You need to make that button push for it to fail over. Just so you understand the differences here.
Hi, Daniel. Just before you continue, Duncan here.
Yes,
are
sir.
there any technologies from Veritas that will allow you to build that automation in for DR?
Yes. Okay. So InfoScale itself can do full automation. So you can create coordination servers and coordination disks. That will basically test from on-site and off-site, test your internet, whether it's up and down. And there, you can create that from InfoScale and have that failover in those cases. So if there are certain applications that really, really need that full automation, you can do that with InfoScale. Again, you need to really validate whether you want that or not, because if you have a denial of service attack going on you, if you're using a coordination server outside of your network to test if you have access, all of a sudden that can fail over such a situation. So you need to, when you're designing these type of things with full automation failovers, you really need to consider what are the challenges that might fail over your environment and actually make, for instance, a denial of service attack what it actually wants. Make your system fail over to the DR site. So
thank you for that, Daniel. It's not always a desirable thing to have total automation. I agree.
No, so that's why in VRP we have said one button push. Okay, but if customers are really for full automation, then really consider what and how and which would be the reason for it to fail over. Okay. So I won't actually demonstrate the full takeover workflow, but I will go back in and have a look to our environment and see where we are going. So here it's now, in this one, it's basically going full over. It has registered the virtual machine. So we should see, yeah, the Linux one here is up and running from the other side. So at this moment, the Linux one has moved over in and done a migration. And this is basically what you can do to your cloud environment. You can easily migrate. And as I said, and I demonstrated in the background, I'm doing it in Amazon. So I will just showcase the very same thing. We shall see here. Do an update, see whether we have got the machine coming in here yet. So it's initializing. Here we have the new machine coming in that we are rehearsing in. And yeah, so it's registering and starting up the machine on the rehearsal. So this is basically, so here you can see the new machine having come in. This was my old test before you were here that I terminated and removed. But this is the new machine now as it's coming in and starting up, as VRP has now administrated and it done a rehearsal boot up. So it's actually not on the same subnet. But if you wouldn't do a rehearsal test, then you would just do the migrate the machine now. So this is basically how it would look. With that, I will go back into the VRP and showcase a design of if I now want to manage and create a multi-tiered, the very part of where you set. So if I now have, for instance, I have a web application So we will add multiple tiers here. So we will say that the database should be the one that restarts first. So the database is, of course, my first in this session, and my web should be taken down in the second session. Okay. So this is a little bit of how you can design this type of workflow when you have a multi-tiered application and layers with multiple machines. So this is basically how you can design this. Now, of course, if you do and use the other design that I showed you in regards to how the workflow, you have specific scripts, you can even design these parts your way. But this is basically how you would easily drag and drop and say if you have multi-tiers. You can even say that some should be started up at the same time as they would be in the same tier. So that gives you a little bit of how easy it is to manage and handle your application and creating that resiliency part. So that's pretty much all I had for my demo right now. And this, I hope, give you to understand a little bit of how easy from VRP point of view you can predict your applications, you can create and make sure that you can cover those RPOs and RTOs in recovery points, as well as you can comply with the different parts and comply with your SLAs. As well, it helps hugely when it comes to automation. Based on many of these applications will have these small specific scripts, and instead of having called this specific person, you can integrate them in the VRP platform, so they're actually done at the part of booting up and moving your application. This is an application that, or VRP is also made for being able to create the mobility from cloud to cloud. So it's helping you to reduce vendor lock-in if you don't want to be locked into one cloud at the time. And I hope that covers me fully. Unless you have any questions, I would let Duncan take over.
Thank you very much for that, Daniel. That was really, really helpful from my perspective. Just whilst you were talking away there, I had a message coming across from someone who had a failure on their ERP system, and they were just wondering, what's the best step for engaging with Veritas to make sure that they can perform a workshop to understand exactly which business critical applications they should be prioritizing?
That's very good. So, I mean, if it's the ERP, then we need to have a little bit of the architect or the solution design to understand which are the part of the ERP are connected together. So that's one part. How we can set up the workshop, I think you in System Express, we can set up individual workshop with your customers. So whenever you have the time and want, we can set up, and we will then map up the state of what are the applications you have, which are the ones that are critical, and how do we need to monitor them. Because in some cases we need to use, for certain applications, we need to use certain solutions. But that's fair? Is that fair enough, Duncan?
No, that's really helpful. Thank you for that. We'll catch up offline about that one in particular. Thank you very much to everyone who made it along today. I hope it's been a useful session for everyone. Just to close things down, if you would like to get in touch with Yaya or myself, do ping us an email, do give us a call on the number on the screen at the moment. Ron will be getting in touch with you in the very near future to provide you with a questionnaire. However, if you would like to take a look at doing a discovery workshop or would like to demo the VRP that Daniel was talking about, we'd be more than happy to set something up along those lines. So thank you very much and have a good day. Bye-bye.